So let's try that again, Marcus. Now that you've got all that worked out, so Pastor Daniel's with us. Get us a view of this good-looking guy, so we can. There he is.
There we go.
So now you're on, looking
Sweet.
good. That's
Welcome,
you.
guys. Thanks for being here tonight. We're excited for this opportunity, especially to be in this space. It's gorgeous. It looks amazing in here. We are so thankful for it. For this setup, we talk about Marcus back here going crazy, but we're really thankful for him, all of his work that he's doing for us. We're excited for tonight.
Yeah,
glad to be here.
I tell you, Marcus is the most underappreciated guy in the entire church. He makes things happen, and he just has a way of doing it. But we have a special guest in the studio. Marcus, if you could help us with a camera. We are with Mr. Bud Pugh, Pastor Bud Pugh. He is the assistant to our district superintendent. He's been here for how long? How many years have you been in the Orpac district?
About 16 and a half.
16 and a half years that you have been the kind of the go-to guy for the pastors. I mean,
well, the helper of the go-to guy.
Right, but if you're like me, see, because and I know it's probably the same with you. I always call you. And I bet most other people do too.
I'm a bit safer.
Yeah,
I think, to some pastors and others. I've been around long enough to have connected with some people in different ways.
For me, you're like the human manual.
Oh well.
The manual the manual class helps, but that was so long ago that forget it. And so anytime I have a question, I know I'm speaking for a lot of the pastors out there, we come to you. So the reason that I really wanted to get you on and do this was because you have some pretty exciting news. And I'll just give Marcus a second to get back in there because we want to see you when you tell us this exciting news. So what's going on? What's new and exciting in Bud Pugh's life?
Well, so tomorrow we'll finish up a little packing. That's the long story. Finish up a little packing on Saturday. We'll load a truck. We are endeavoring to move all of our stuff to a home in Nampa, Idaho. About almost 5 months ago was approached online or through email by a pastor who asked me if I'd be open to any kinds of conversations with transition going on in our lives. So we've accepted an invitation to join the staff of Nampa First Church and Church of the Nazarene.
That was good.
And we do call it Nampa First.
Okay.
In large part to be able to identify, besides Jesus, we put Nampa first.
Sure.
And so I'm going to be called the pastor of ministry advancement, and that may mean a whole bunch of things.
Right.
And it's probably going to.
Right.
But I do have a job description that'll include a number of things that are a bit, administrative pastor-ish. Mm-hmm. Maybe some executive pastor-ish. Mm-hmm. But I really just kind of like the phrase ministry advancement, that my role is going to be to kind of keep pushing the ball down the field for others, mm-hmm. supporting them, encouraging them, providing for them everything that I can. I'll be kind of parts of 3 teams, really 4. I'll be working with the finance team, with the facilities team, with HR team, and then I've been charged with developing small groups at a church that I think has had some in the past, but mm-hmm. they're dominated at this point by large Sunday school classes.
How big of a church is Nampa First?
I think it's about 1,000, 900 to 1,000.
He says it so flippantly. They're only running 1,000 or so.
Well, and I don't mean it that way.
No,
I
know.
I know it's one of our larger churches. It's a legacy church. It's been around since 1916, and
wow.
It's been one of those churches that people look to, and
Sure.
it has been both a kind of a driver of church culture
Mm-hmm.
and Nazarene culture, and kind of a bit of the Nazarene way, mile and a half or so from Northwest Nazarene University.
Mhm.
Been influential there and influenced by NNU.
You say you're about a mile and a half away?
Yeah.
Wow. So that's
Yeah.
just like right there.
Yeah, we do have a church that's closer to NNU
Really?
than a mile and a half. College Church is
Okay.
across the street,
Okay.
and on the same street as some of the NNU buildings.
Wow.
But yeah, it's there's several churches in Nampa, College Church and Nampa First and Bethel and Lakeview and a few others as well. But,
So 16 years you're in an administrative position, assisting primarily Dr. Reeder. Where was it just Dr. Reeder, or were you there before he was the district superintendent?
I was about 5.5 years with the superintendent before
Okay,
Dr. Reeder came.
but that's been your role, has been primarily in that assistant to the district superintendent, right?
Yeah, that's what I've done for 16 and a half.
So was so this is, I mean, it's kind of a different role. I mean, it's still administrative, but this is more, you're going to be dealing with people directly, which I know you're a pastor at heart. I mean, I know you, and those of us who know you know that's going to be easy. I think the people in Nampa, I hope they know what they're getting, and I'm not here just to butter you up. I mean, we've established a friendship. I mean, I've been so grateful for that. That's why you're the first guest on the show. I mean, you're the first person to be a part of this, and I can't think of anybody better. I wonder, having never been to Nampa and not, relatively new to the Pacific Northwest as it is, but I wonder if they realize what they're getting. And have you thought about, wow, this is kind of a different from the job aspect. I mean, we know it's not a job. We get the call, but have you thought about, wow, that's going to be really different?
Yeah, 16 and a half years, not necessarily heavily involved in a local congregation is certainly going to be an adjustment for us. And I think, for them, this is a new role. They've had executive pastors, they've had administrative pastors, and I'll have some of those responsibilities. But we pastor purposefully chose and then designed a job description around pastoring, and that's and serving.
Mm-hmm.
And stewarding the gifts that God has given to the church. And so it really tied in well, I think, with who I am. I don't know that, well, I know that he didn't know me well.
Right.
We've had conversations, and he's talked to people that know me. And I think the Spirit kind of led him to a role description and that's really fitting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've said a number of times in recent weeks that it's been my heart for quite some time, but about a year and a half ago, really kind of brought to crystallization a 3-word aspiration and hopefully description of what I feel like God has called me to in ministry, and that is servant, shepherd, and steward. And again, aspiration, I don't think I've accomplished any of those, but it's my heart to be engaged in serving Jesus first of all, serving anybody that he brings in front of me. It'd be my heart as a quote unquote leader to be a servant in that role. At the same time, I want to shepherd people. I want to pastor people. I have that heart. That means, of course, Daniel, caring for the sheep. We understand that role, and I do have a heart for that. And I love people. I enjoy engaging with people and being on the journey with them. But there's I was reminded a few years ago, and it's really kind of come back home to me in recent years. We've had a vision of shepherding that has been a bit short-sighted in the life of the church, I think. And this author suggested it, and I agree with him. He's a smart guy. I don't know whether he is or not, but I agree with him.
Right. Yeah.
And so he said that we've lost part of the biblical imagery of shepherding, and we have captured it. We have held it to that caring for the sheep.
Right.
And the question is, for what purpose?
Right.
Why do shepherds care for the sheep? And his suggestion was, and I think he's right, is that shepherds today and in the days of Jesus in the Old Testament imagery of shepherding was they were charged with bringing an increase for the master.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I say, I want to be a shepherd, I want to care for the sheep,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got a calling to bring an increase for the master, increase of his honor and glory, increase of sheep. If sheep don't produce, what happens to them?
Mm.
They get culled out of the flock.
Right.
I mean, that means they become mutton, right?
Right.
Sheepskin car cover seats.
Being a city guy, I actually didn't know the answer to that question.
That's why we all looked at you to see
That's
what was
right.
the response
That's
gonna
right.
be.
All eyes were suddenly on me. That's exactly right.
So, but the charge to shepherds was to bring an increase for the master,
Right.
and then that kind of then rolls over into, if you bring an increase for the master, you got to be good steward of the gifts that God has given to the church, right. And the most important gifts that God has given to the church is the people.
Yeah.
And I also have to steward the gifting I think that God has given to me, or that I'm still journeying with understanding who I am. But then also to recognize that God, each person that's in front of me is God's handiwork,
Right.
created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he prepared in advance for them to do. And, that challenge to help people to fulfill that calling on their lives as a steward, it's very important to me.
I had lunch today with a gentleman in our church, a new believer, within 4 months. And he's been a part of a men's group, a small men's group. And we were talking about, and, I end every service with, go tell somebody about Jesus. And he said, at first I would think to do that. When I'd see somebody, I'd think, hey, Pastor Todd has suggested, I'm doing this because my pastor has suggested that we do it. And then he transitioned to he had a friend, a couple had come over to their house. And in the middle of this, they got into a bit of a skirmish. They got into a bit of a heated argument, and the guy kind of flew off the handle and said something. And this young believer pulled this guy aside, and he said, hey, and the way to hear him tell the story, and I'm sure it's probably losing everything in translation, but it was so exciting. You probably know who I'm talking about.
I believe so.
And he goes, and I found myself talking to this guy, using words coming out of my mouth that I had no idea what I was talking about. They were all spiritual, asking this guy, hey, have you considered a relationship with Christ and all these things? And he goes, and suddenly it became instantly real to him, this idea of sharing the gospel. Now you're talking about, of course, shepherding. And you taught me, you wouldn't know this. I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but when I was candidating here, and being in an interim position with Pastor Lon at the time here, you had to teach me what it means to be a steward of the church in that role, because it was such a dynamically complex thing. And I remember talking to you about that and saying, we were over at Starbucks there, and I'm saying, okay, what does that mean? And I think that also gets missed. Yeah, we're called to shepherd, but the importance of being a steward is equally important. And so I learned that from you, and I wanted to thank you for that. I want to shift gears. Do you have something you want to?
There's a few things in there. We were talking beforehand a little bit, and when I was at NNU, I went to Nampa First, and so I did internships there.
So you've been to the church?
I've been to the church. I worked with the youth department. I remember staying up one night writing final essays at midnight. At a NYI event, keeping teens on one side of the room and female teens on the other side of the room. So we had a lot of good times there. So it's a great church. We're really excited for you being there. But you were also instrumental in bringing me here. Mm-hmm. Part of that discussion.
That's right.
Where when I was in Beaverton, we were kind of discussing on what a pastoral role might look like for me. And so my lead pastor reached out to Bud. He said, hey, I've got this church. It might be a fit. Why don't we arrange a meeting and start that conversation? And so I just want to thank you for that you were very instrumental in bringing me to this place. It's been such a blessing that God's called my family here. And that's been awesome. And then lastly, your 3 words in our communications over the last couple weeks regarding licensing and some of those things, I recall scrolling through your email, and I paused at those 3 words. Everyone has the line right at the end of your email, that your signature. And I saw that, and it kind of caught my attention for a minute. And it just felt very intentional. I felt very like you'd put that there for a reason. And so I pondered on that for a couple moments. So to hear you explain that which is really cool. Really exciting to hear your heart
Thank
behind
you.
that.
Yeah, those three words have, I think, been swirling around my ministry and my heart and mind for some time, but to come to the place where those just nailed it for me. There's another S. I actually put together a little logo one time with a big Superman S in the middle of
Right.
servant, shepherd, and steward around it. But there's an overarching S to that too, and it comes out of Romans chapter 12. I think it's verse 9. It says, "Love must be sincere," and those three words really grew out of a desire and heart to have a sincere love, not one that's got a mixture of motivations and of things that I wanted to see out of it, but to be sincere in love. And then those things kind of flow out of that. Again, I'm on a journey, and my love for Jesus is perfected, but the outworking of that is still in process. But yeah,
that's excellent.
Again,
you should say that again. Starting with my love for Jesus is perfected. However, there is still a process with some of these other things. Man, that's
good.
Just excellent.
That's good. I threw in there too, just last bit, hearing that about sincerity. As we process through licensing, as young pastors going through this, you've kind of been the guy who's kind of overseen us in that. We come to the meeting where we have to sit before the board. We're all sitting in a hallway waiting for our name to get called. There's a sense of anxiety there, but you're right there. You greet us. You usually greet us by name. You ask about how our wife is or our spouse doing by name, our kids by name. Right? And it's just been, just that moment you walk in, like, Bud's got this. This is good. We're in good hands. So I just want to thank you for that time as being on this district, just the investment you've had in us, the process, investing in our lives, taking care of us. That sense of sincerity, it comes through. We see it for sure.
Yeah, I want to tag on to that. I wonder, I don't know, but I don't think you realize how important those things are. Because I remember the same thing. I remember, being out there with, 2 or 3 other couples, and you're waiting for your name to be called, and you are intimidated. You go in there, and it's certainly for ordination, you sit down there, and there's just every major guy is there, right? Every other, and you're there, and you're like, man, the one guy other than my wife that I am close to here is Bud. He's probably the only guy who knows my name and their names and my kids' names. That's everything. Those are calming things. And, I remember sitting at the table, and I remember making eye contact with you more than anybody else. I can't remember a single question that I was asked, not one. And those things are huge. And I thank you for that. And I know I'm speaking for other pastors on our district. You have been just an anchor. I mean, when I first heard that you had accepted this position, I certainly was happy for you. Absolutely happy for you. Brokenhearted for us. Linda Fender stuck her head in 30 minutes before we came on, and she was thanking me for having you on, and just those kind of things. The impact that you've had is long-standing, is long-lasting, and the friendships that you've made. I want to say to the people watching, if you guys have questions, we'd be okay if somebody asks. If you have questions for Bud or for myself or Pastor Dan, you can go ahead and put them on there. I'm not going to promise we're going to get to them because there's a lot still we want to cover. But if you do have some questions, go ahead and do that. Also, want to remind everybody to share this video on your page. This is a good way for people to get to see who we are as a people, who we are as a denomination, and the kind of amazing leaders that we have. That help us kind of grow the flock and give us the tools that we need to do that. So if you have some questions, go ahead and throw them up there. Marcus, if you just kind of flag some of those things as you see them come in, I'd appreciate it. I want to transition a little bit, but the world's crazy right now. I mean, we are in, there is social unrest, there is political divide, there are churches that some are able to gather, some are not able to gather. We're delving into a whole new way of doing church, things like this. Literally, this was something that, wow, did you hear that? This is something that came from the kind of the mindset of a pandemic. He and I literally at different times, Pastor Dana on the same day had, hey, we should do some kind of live thing every day, some kind of prayer thing. And we did it. And it was like gangbusters. I couldn't believe how successful that it was. And we said, okay, this is something to keep. This is something to move into the future. And we've had other churches in the area contact us about, okay, how do we do it? How are you doing those things? And we've seen even just here in Malala, there's been a connection with other churches that's really strengthened the body. But you look out there, and I'm going somewhere. You look out there, and it's just crazy. And here you are getting ready to up and move your family to an entirely new ministry, another church, and I don't know if they're meeting in Nampa or not, but has that weighed into your decision making as far as what that might potentially look like? I mean, to new job in a time like this, I mean, that's just crazy, right?
Well, one of the things that has been kind of on my heart is, how do you leave in a time like this? Relationships with pastors. I've got a cohort of just 4 pastors that I've Zoom meeting with every week. We were in a cohort for 18 months before, and we came to the end of that on basically the beginning of all of this, and we just said, hey, we're going to meet every week, and we've done that. Met with them yesterday, and kind of went into it saying, this is it. But before we were done, it was like, nah, I'll be with you. It'll be a couple weeks before we can do it again, but we're going to meet again. And that is just kind of the indicator of, is this a good time to move, kind of thing, because of the people I care for and that are going through things. And, there's some wonderful technology that makes it possible to continue some of that anyway. But I was contacted on February 1st about this, and we began a journey, and the pastor got approval from his leadership on March 10th. By March 12th, we were organized to go to Nampa on April 19th, the weekend after Easter. And on March 16th, the pastor calls and said, oh, we've just entered into this, a church that had not done anything live. They had recorded their messages for some time, pivoted in 10 days to do everything streaming. And so, they really did something on the fly. And those kinds of things, and the opportunity to be a part of a team and to journey together on some of that, and to feel as though maybe I would have something to offer to the conversations through experiences and through, just having been there, done that kind of thing. You've seen the commercials. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And I think that was part of the reason why the pastor is inviting me on to the staff is, just some breadth of experience. And so, you begin to say and begin to see, okay, this probably is the time for a transition. And that wasn't the ultimate decision-making process, but you can kind of see, that is right, or this is something that God could be in. So the church has had 2 Sundays where they've met in 2 services. They have a sanctuary that'll seat 1,700, but they also have a gym service around tables, and so they're able to practice social distancing. And yet this week, Idaho is kind of having to buckle down. They're having a bit of a spike, so they've said we're not going into stage 5 for at least 30 days. Boise is back down from 4 to 3. 5 is, I think, they're ending. But so there's some scary things going. Scary isn't maybe the right word. There are some new things that are happening within the life of the church, and I think it's probably been an interesting journey for a pastor and people. As you know, people have varying opinions on when and how and all of those things. And I know that they have worked very hard, and I just can't help but reflect on our pastors on the district as well, and just what you guys have done, what others have done, just the the depth of appreciation for them pouring out their lives in this season in ways that mentally taxing, emotionally taxing, spiritually taxing, and how God has used our pastors and other leaders within the life of the church to, in this season, it's just pretty amazing. And my heart goes out to pastors and people that have done so much and have given so much, that in a way it's kind of hard to leave in those situations. Sure. And yet, again, just that sense of God's calling has kind of said, this is the time and this is the space, and I guess they need me, and I need to be obedient to
Right.
what the Lord is calling.
Yeah, what
us.
is it? We're owned by God, and that's it. God is the one who gets to dictate. Yeah, anything?
No, I love it. It's good
That's
stuff.
it. That is it. Okay. Well, I still have more.
Oh, I can always talk. I mean, if you
No,
want,
this is great.
the farmer's jingle is just like right there. Like, I just had to come in, but I just decided not to.
We are right. That.
Yeah, dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun,
We
dun,
know a
dun.
thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. That's
Yep.
right. We need, you know, what we need to show him Gabby's laugh somehow. We need to get that in there. But wait till it's appropriate. Well, where ties is my future daughter-in-law has a great laugh.
Okay.
And Ryan, you know Ryan, you're my son. He recorded it one time in a live stream and sent it to me because we were doing something that just made her crack up, and he recorded it. So now anytime somebody says something funny, we put it up there, and you get to hear her laugh. It's to me, and she's on. I saw her. She was talking. She's probably terrified now that I said that. And I see Ryan is on, and people like Japheth. What's up, Japheth? Just saying hi to a few people. So there's a lot of people, but I haven't seen anybody with any questions. So apparently, yeah, and that I kind of anticipated that. I just wanted to present it to him as an option. Looking back over 16 years, I mean, 16 good years. Maybe just some of the highlights, some things that I like. I can tell you one of my highlights with you, real quick, is the very first year I was here. Now, understand, I don't know anybody, right? I mean, the only guy I knew was Pastor Steve. That was it. And so I get here, and like a month after I'm here, 2 weeks after I'm here, is the men's retreat. And so we go to the campground, and it's a running joke. People know what I think of camping, right? You know, so it's just not my thing. So, Gabby, what do you think about my love of camping? What do you think about that? Oh, here we go. You'll get to see Gabby.
Oh, there's 18, 17, 16,
You gotta slide it over.
14, 13, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah, PT's response is he looks at me and says, "How do you enjoy this?
Right.
Like, what possibly about this is fun? Like, tell me. I need to know, because clearly I'm missing something."
Right. Well, it's this whole thing, this idea of camping. It's like I'm in the wrong state because that's what I mean, if you don't hunt or camp, or if you're not into that thing, man, there's problems. And those things are about as unappealing to me as could possibly be. I'm like, why would I ever sleep outside when I don't have to? You know, that kind of thing. What is my line? What does I say? What if something's on TV and it's never shown again?
Yeah.
Right? You know,
You might miss it.
You might miss it. So we think about it. Ryan Barker, Pastor Ryan, said the installation ceremony with Bud is something he'll never forget. So he's watching. So he's appreciative of that. But I had asked you some highlights from your time here.
Well, and just reflecting on Pastor Ryan, I did have the privilege all over the place to install pastors, and invariably I would find myself coming to the end of John Wesley's covenant prayer, where I've already kind of alerted the pastor. I'm asking you at the end of this, are you going to give your life away?
Right.
And I know I know our churches,
Mm-hmm.
and I know ministry in general, that they're going to give their life away. They're going to pour themselves
Mm-hmm.
out, and I'm asking them to affirm that they're ready to do that. And it's a very emotional moment. Usually, I've been through the process of introducing pastor to people and interviewing and all of those things, so I've gotten to know them fairly well. And I know sometimes, I almost always know the spouse and the
Mm-hmm.
children, and here I am, saying, "Are you going to give your life away?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying yes, and it's just a powerful moment.
Yeah.
And just to, because I know, I don't predict the future, but I know that there's struggle coming.
Right.
I know that they're going to pay the price.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people pay the price, but here I am standing in front of God and everybody, asking them to affirm that they're going to give their life away, and it's just a powerful moment. So that's a reflective moment. And again, I don't know that there's a assistant to the superintendent in the denomination that was given the privileges that I was given through the years. Of working with churches and church boards and pastors and candidates. There may be others, but it's been a real privilege that maybe I don't know, earned some of that relationally, but for Dr. Healy to start, and Keith Wright in the interim, and Dr. Reeder, and just to have them allow me to have those privileges to work with church boards and with pastors. it really was a place where I think I fit. I think my gifting fit in those kinds of places. Calming presence, somebody that would
Very much
make
so.
everybody feel like, okay, we can do this kind of thing. So, just reflecting back on Men's Advance, one of the highlights I think was about 3 or 4 years into it. I was asked to speak at our Men's Advance, and then a few years later, the speaker couldn't get there. So
That's what I was talking about.
Okay,
That's
that
the
was-
one I never got to finish because we got on the whole camping thing. But yeah, you had to, like that. I'm bringing the message.
Well, and to be honest, I have some messages
Sure,
on my
of course.
computer kind
Right.
of thing, and I was able to reflect on and kind of ask God to help me to know what to say. And I kind of remember that message and that, the heart that God gave me for the men at that time. Just there's so many good things about our district, and so many ways in which God is using our district. And it's challenging days, but they all are. There hasn't been an easy day since the fall of Adam.
No.
For people to live for God, and for people to be reached by God, or through God's people be reached. And so it's challenging days, but God's on the throne and He's working, and it's just been kind of fun to be a part of wherever, just to branch off of that a little bit. If you've ever done Strengths Finders stuff, I've got what's called an adaptability strength that's probably in my top 3, which means that curveballs don't throw me off. Interruptions aren't an issue to me. They don't bother me. It doesn't
Right.
mean that I
Right.
jump off and go all over. But we adaptable people, the scripture says it's not as though they don't plan, but they're willing to break the plan, kind of thing. And so I've adapted to the things that have been in front of me, and so that has created opportunities to do things that I didn't start doing. I wasn't doing the kinds of things that I was doing at the beginning, and
Right.
so it is, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, and just be willing and ready to step in when
I don't know, man. There's some things I think that I would consider you have a mastery over. I really would. I just would. I think that you're the perfect guy. You were for me, too. I mean, you handled much of my candidacy and my process and a lot of the board. And, I mean, you really did a lot of that. Even the interview, all that stuff. And I think you're masterful with that.
Okay.
I mean, my wife thinks the world of you for the same reason. And I know this guy, it's like I said, you sent me his resume. You're like, you should consider this guy. He's worth looking at. And here I was at the time looking for a guy strong in tech, which was not his strength, right?
Nope, it is not.
But after meeting him, I mean, literally, ironically, I met him for lunch at one of the first places Dr. Reeder met me. And I knew within 15 minutes, it was like, this is the guy, and that's from you. And so I was grateful, for those things. I think that now, I know in the assistant role you don't get to preach much. Will you get to preach much in Nampa?
I'll probably get to preach less there.
Okay.
There were times that I'd preach often here, often half of the time, a third of the time. There are other times that I wouldn't preach for weeks and months. I was asked when we first came to Oregon 25 years ago next month. And
Wow.
I was a lead pastor in Colorado, and we were coming out to Oregon to be on staff. And when I was interviewing, the pastor asked me, he said, "Are you going to miss preaching?" I said, something I know about you after about 5 minutes with you is that you live to preach. You live to preach, and I can see that all over you. I don't live to preach. I enjoy preaching, and people seem to enjoy my preaching or appreciate and are changed by my preaching, but I don't live to preach. And so that's served me well in this role that I've been in. Opportunity, but not, I die if I'm not preaching kind of thing. And in the same way, there's a whole lot of ways to express the gifting that God has given to me without preaching. And I hope my life preaches, and I know that I'll get plenty of opportunity to preach, prophesy into people's lives.
Sure. You'll be able to
tell
minister
truth.
to people for sure.
And I there are opportunities that'll come along to preach both Sunday morning. They have a Sunday evening kind of thing that they do as well. and so I wouldn't be surprised to step into that role and have teaching opportunities as well. So I'll be available.
Excellent. So really, I just have one more question that I want to ask, and if you have something, you can give me something about ORPAC or Oregon or being in Oregon for 25 years that you're going to miss, that you know, man, I'm just going to miss this. I know it. And then something in Nampa that you're like really looking forward to that.
Berries.
Okay. Okay.
Fresh fruit kind of stuff, here in the valley.
Right.
Just at that kind of a level. Boy, what am I going to miss about Oregon? We have, again, just kind of at a superficial level, we have the best 3 months of summer you can
You're
get
not
anywhere. And so, Nampa's warmer and hotter and drier and more arid and not as pretty.
Right.
And so
Right.
There's that too. In terms of ORPAC, what am I going to miss about ORPAC? It again comes down to just the relationships that we've developed over the years. And Maggie, my wife, has been over and over, not in any kind of forceful way, just saying, I'm not saying goodbye. I'm telling people I'll see you later. And that's been kind of our thing, is that we recognize there's going to be a separation that happens here, but it's not a goodbye. It's a we'll see you later.
Right.
And the relationships will change a little bit, but we still have them, and we still have those friendships, and nothing changes the experiences that we've
Right.
had together. In terms of Nampa, two things I think come to mind almost immediately. One of them is that I'll have an opportunity to be a part of a larger team and to be a part of a culture that the staff has purposefully built to do life and ministry together. And Pastor has certainly kind of focused and pushed on that, but it's, to the place where the pastor gave 100% authority to the staff as to whether I would join them or not. He knew what he wanted, but it was going to be based on our time together. We spent 2.5, 3 hours in an interview setting, and it was going to be totally based on their viewpoint of whether I was a good fit for their team or not. So that means a lot that they then voted unanimously, that they felt that was what the Lord wanted. The second thing I'm excited about Nampa First is to be a part of the legacy church that has, I think, begun to turn corners and is purposefully engaged in new, fresh ways in the community of Nampa. They've clearly been there, and they've been engaged in the community. You're not a church of 1,000 without having some level of engagement. But the word missional is, I don't know that it's one that they use much there, but that's the word that I would use to describe what they're attempting to do to be less what we would call attractional, just to, the old-fashioned put up a sign, tell people you're preaching, have some good music, and have people start coming. That probably it would be good if 1956 would come around again. We're perfectly situated for that with that kind of a arrangement. But the to be on mission in the community. Care House Partnerships is one aspect of that. The CR group, they've got food bank. They just have finished building a clinic, or remodeling a house, and maybe something more than that. I haven't even seen inside of it. A medical and counseling clinic that will be a cooperative with the church and NNU, using student interns in counseling and in medical care. And so,
oh my gosh, Carla would love that. That's what she's going to school for.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And finally, I've been, and I know all of experiences online, but I've been touched in my spirit by the spirit of the worship that I've experienced at Nampa First, and I don't know exactly what that is all about. I just know that as I have been a part of their services, how God has just touched my heart through the selection of the music and the spirit in which it's shared. And I haven't been there live. They haven't been there live until the last 2 weeks. They've recorded all of their services for the previous 8 weeks or so, and yet just that sense of the Spirit moving. And so, I'm excited about being a part of a church every Sunday again. And, as it's been for 16 and a half years, unless I'm in some special arrangement, it's a different church each week.
Wow. So you don't think like that. When you're not in that position, that's not a thought process I would ever have, as a DS or even as an assistant. Yeah, the concept of a home church is, I guess it exists, but it's really not the same. Gosh, I don't know that I could ever do that. I mean,
two times in the last 16 and a half years, actually, the first one was 6-7 months into my time. I've had an assignment that kept me in a local church for more than 1 week, out at Sandy for a few weeks, and then I covered for a pastor for a 13-week sabbatical 6 or 8 or 10 years ago. And those are the 2 times in my ministry at the district level that I've been more than
a couple weeks. Right. Shelley Watt, scroll back up there for me. Marcus had something I wanted to read to you. It says, Pastor Bud, your example. By the way, Shelley's the one who designed this whole thing. Right? She says, Pastor Bud, your example has been the finest example of what a Christian's life should look like. You are loved, and I think that really captures what. Everybody, I don't know anybody who doesn't just think the world of you.
Well, that's very kind.
Yeah, well, it's true though. I mean, there are people like that. I mean, there are people in all of our lives, and we think, man, I love that guy, and you're one of those people for a lot of people, and I think God's blessed you with that, and I think it's a tremendous testimony to who you are, not just as a person or even as a minister, but just simply as a man of God. And I think those things I think it's awesome.
So I was getting ready this morning just to reflect on that for a moment, and I think it's Mercy Me has a song, Only Jesus. I don't want to leave a legacy, is one of the lines.
Right.
I don't want people to remember me, only Jesus.
Right.
And you can say that, and
sure,
I can say that, but I want that to be actually not more than an aspiration, but an actuality in my life, that people would see Jesus in me.
Well, I don't think they do, and they will continue, and they will in Nampa. Do you got anything else? Because we can.
On a side note, it's not a time with Pastor Daniel if coffee does not make its way in some point. I mean, I don't have my cup here, so it feels awkward, but you got to check out Fly Nam. You got to make sure that's part of the Nampa scene. That's just the coffee shop in town.
Do they serve Diet Pepsi?
I'm sure they've got something in there. I'm sure they could work that in for you.
Maggie's a coffee fan. She'll take you up on that. Okay. She's been there before.
Good.
Too.
But I was going to ask, you talked about the affiliation with NNU a little bit, kind of bringing in the counseling and medical and some of those kinds of things. For, like I said, in my role there, when I was there, I was an intern, right, fulfilling ministry requirements through NNU. Will you have any involvement with overseeing some of that? I know it's a large church. You're close. It gathers a lot of students who are fulfilling ministry requirements, things like that. Is that anywhere near kind of a description you might have? Or
Yeah, I think that's part of the pastor's vision for why I'm there, both at a local church level and maybe at a district level, to have some involvement in helping with that process. It was more than just connecting me to Nampa First. It was also to the district, and frankly, it also some pretty cool alignments were kind of already working in place. And I'll just take a moment to share this. We have a missionary in Southeast Asia that used to pastor on our district. And back in December or so, he sent an email to me, and Steve in our office said, help, I've just been appointed district superintendent of Cambodia, and we've got district assembly coming up. Give me everything you got. So we sent everything over to Kevin Campbell White, and he pulled off a district assembly, and in February or so he wrote me a note and said thanks, we made it, kind of thing. And when I first started the conversation with Pastor Brian at Nampa First, he was leaving to go to Southeast Asia to do they were investigating whether they were going to have a partnership with that field. And I didn't know where he was going, who he was meeting with. We got back, and there were pictures of him and Kevin Campbell White. And I wrote him a note and said, "Hey, I know that guy." He said, "Yeah, I know. I actually did a little reference check on you." He loves you, by the way.
Right.
He didn't know I was doing that. So another 3 or 4 weeks went by, and I got an email from Kevin saying, "Hey, Bud, love for you to think about coming over. Like you to do some training of our pastors, maybe teach a couple of study courses and help us with district assembly kinds of things and training." And he said, "I don't have any money. Can't pay your way here. Can't pay you anything. We'll take care of you while you're here." And I said, "Great." So I pushed that over to Pastor Brian and said, "Hey, maybe something's happening here." And he said, "Exactly."
Yeah.
I've had
That's
you.
awesome.
I've had you in mind and 3 retired district superintendents in the church.
Wow.
That would really align well with the partnership that we're developing between Nampa First and Southeast Asia Field. And so, when you see those kinds of things, so long answer to your question, yes, they have several interns. There's another staff member that's been pretty heavily engaged and is very good working with interns, but it is at least a portion of my job description, and staff development is a part of that, staff and intern development. And some of that's to be fleshed out. Man, I have so much to learn. It's been so long since I've done local church finance, and it's a big church. Never done that. Involvement with HR, not at all. Facilities, sure. Again, jack of all trades, master of none. Put a hammer in my hand, I'll figure out a way to use it, kind of thing.
Right.
And if it doesn't fit, use a bigger hammer.
Right.
That's the adaptive part.
Yeah,
Right there. You're going to work with it.
and
That's what
I've
they
just
did with me at the first turkey shoot. Just put a shotgun in his hand, see what happens.
Well, I won't have to do it all.
Right.
But I
Right.
have an engagement in that level. Anyway, there are just so many ways that it kind of fits who I am and what God has done in me and for me. And just before we close this up, I just want to.
We can go as long as you want. I just
Well,
don't want to. I don't want to obligate you to
No.
anything.
Well, I just want to express appreciation to Maggie. As I was driving out here
Sure.
tonight, I was, she's been the Holy Spirit in flesh in my life.
Wow.
In so many ways. And I was thinking, she doesn't like to be out in front of me, but she is in so many ways. She, she's in front of me, she's beside me, she's behind me. She's not within me, but close enough. So, that's the way the Spirit, I think, the one who comes alongside, the Comforter, and was the voice behind us. This is the way, walk in it, and the one out in front of us, leading us into the life that He has for us. And I want to express, she's been working so hard as we are trying to put this all together to make a move and sell a house and buy a house and pack in the middle of all of that. And I just wanted to affirm, and she is, again, she has been Jesus in the flesh in my life, and she has expressed God's love and grace and forgiveness to me.
Amen.
Made it real, made God's forgiveness and mercy and grace real in my life. And for many years, we'll be at 38 years in September.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Well, anybody who knows Maggie loves Maggie. I remember, Shelley Watt was saying that she just loved Maggie. I told Pastor Daniel, because I wasn't sure if you were bringing her, and I told him, I texted him, I said, if Maggie's coming, I don't have a spot for you. We'll put her in front of the mic as well.
Yeah,
but
she wouldn't have wanted that.
But Roland Gaylor is saying that it's good to see you. I mean, there have been a handful of people who've just they're sharing their sentiments, that kind of thing. Well, as a church, we wanted to do something for you. There's a lot of people in the church who just love you, and whose lives you've touched and changed, probably in a way you don't even realize it. Somebody said, it was Dr. Fred Huff, who was the DS in New Mexico when I was there. He said, you'll be surprised at the number of lives you've changed, at the number of lives you've touched that you don't even realize. And I think that's true. I think it's true with all of us. But I think it's certainly true with you. I'll never forget you. And I know that I can call you. I still got your phone number, and
Until I change it.
that's right.
I'll let you know.
Hold on, before I get I'm just curious, a question for my own. How big is Nampa? How big of a city is Nampa?
When we were in college there, by the way, we attended there when we were married. The
Okay.
Sunday after we got married, we were there. We dedicated our oldest daughter at Nampa First. and it was a community of about 25,000
Okay.
when we left there a long time ago, 1984. About 10 years ago, it was up to 80,000, and now it's pushing over 100,000.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
It's
So
a suburb of Boise, basically. It's
Okay.
20 minutes
20 minutes? Okay.
or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
This means that next year, like, is this like the Wesley conference goes on, and I'm gonna get PT to come
You're
with
really,
me.
really, well,
He
I'm
needs to
see- so-
see Nampa.
Yeah, he
And
can be part of it.
needs
He
to
can see you. We can
come and
just
see me.
That's
That's
exactly.
well, you don't have to twist my arm. I mean, there's more than one reason now to go. And I'm certainly, well, I'm just going to miss you. I really am. We'd get together periodically and have coffee, and I just enjoyed that time. And I've learned a lot from you. And I said to Shelley, I said, I'd like to do something just from the church, just our way of saying, thank you for your service. Thank you for 16 years, not to Malala, but to the ORPAC district. And I'm sure other, so I'm going to need you to maybe manage that camera back there, Pastor Daniel, or Marcus, you can stay there. Just that camera, just make sure. So, because we've got something for you. It's for you. It's for you and Maggie, but it's for you. So there's this, but also I got to take my headphones off here, and so I'm hoping that you can still hear me. I know the mics were pretty hot, so. But Bud, if you want to step over here, this is for you.
Oh, wow.
And it's just an art piece that you can hang up on a wall. And okay, we're gonna get that camera to do it. So here we're gonna I'll get out of the way. Okay. And it's just something that we had put together or made. I don't to be honest with you, I don't know if she had it made or fabricated or what, but
Wow.
I thought, this is something that you would appreciate. You can hang it in your new office or wherever you'd like to do it. But we just want to thank you for your service. Let you know I'm gonna hug you.
Okay.
I
Just don't breathe on
appreciate
me.
you. I won't do that. I won't do that. But we wanted to give that to you and let you know that we appreciate you and we're going to miss you. And the district's not going to be the same without you. I'm sure God will provide us with and DS Dave with an excellent assistant. I don't have any doubts about that at all. But whoever the new assistant is, what I know is he's not going to be Bud Pugh. That's what I know.
Good thing.
Well, I'm sure it is because we all have to be who we are, right? If I've taught you anything, is like you got to be who you are, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And but we wanted to just thank you. I appreciate you doing this, being here. We're trying to redefine how we do ministry right now, and this is part of that process. Like I'm going to be calling the new DS, see if he can come out here.
Sure.
We've thought about just some of the different ideas of even having some of the other local pastors come in and tell us, what are you guys doing in your church? What do you like? Just different things. Having Linda Fender, who heads women's ministries. This is her last year doing that for the district. Share those kind of things. I've even, who knows, right?
Sure.
Who knows?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
No, I think it's great, and thank you for having me, and thank you for the gift and the card and for the expressions of love.
Well, we love you. I love you. We appreciate you being here. The way we end everything is we say, go tell somebody about Jesus. So we'd like to incorporate you into that. So I need you to put the camera on Bud, bro. All right. So we'll look. You find your camera, which is right there, and I'll look at mine, and you look in yours, and we'll go. Just 3, 2, 1. Go tell somebody about Jesus. God bless you guys. Brother Bud, Pastor Bud, thank you for being here. You are super, super blessed. You've blessed other people. I'm a better man because of you. I'm a better pastor because of you. I'm a better Christian because of you. And I know I speak for a lot of people. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your service. And God bless you in the work in Nampa. You just go knock them out. Go do it. All right, we'll see you guys. Blessings. Thank you.